Hello everyone from my sunny desk. Today the sun is just streaming in the window. It's just been wonderful. And pardon my silly attempt at B-roll for the beginning of this, but I really wanted to show you the beautiful shimmer of the pen that I want to talk about today. This is the new Kaweco Sport Iridescent model, and it was new this spring. They had a few new colors that came out, and since this is my very favorite affordable fountain pen, I decided to go ahead and purchase one. The price was right. I got it in a medium nib, and I'm going to show you what I love about these pens. The Kaweco Sports are my very favorite affordable fountain pens. I will get into my very favorite models of the Kaweco Sport in another video. But for now, let's talk about this beautiful new iridescent version. So I'm going to demonstrate how this writes. And before I do that, I just want to tell you what ink I'm using. I decided to fill it with an Airbend cartridge. This is a shorter universal cartridge. It's in the color Poussière de Lune, and it's this beautiful sort of dusty violet color, and I thought it would look really nice with that. I'm happy with it. It's a beautiful ink. So the pen, the Kaweco Sports are really tiny pens. They are truly a pocket pen. So when it's closed up, it's the cap screws tight so it doesn't come off. When it's closed up, I mean, it truly could be put into your pocket. It's easy to slip into a handbag. And for me, this is what I take everywhere. So it's just perfect to fit in any kind of portable thing that you want to be taking it out on the town with you. And when you post it, so you unscrew it and then you just post it like this, it becomes a really comfortable size for me. It's not heavy, it's not cumbersome. I have some pens, for instance, my TWSBI Eco is, when it's posted, and I really don't even post this pen because it just becomes way too big for my hand. I have short fingers, but this pen is a little bit too much for me. The Kaweco is just right. It's just a perfect size for my hand. So it's a comfortable pen to write with. You can write with this for a really long time. I decided to get it in the medium nib. I like the juiciness of the Kaweco medium nib. So let me just demonstrate a little bit, and we're going to talk about my left-handedness in a little bit, but let me just demonstrate. So I'll do a little bit of cursive writing and more of a straight up and down style, but you can see how juicy this nib is. It is not a dry nib at all. It started up immediately. It's a fluid, beautiful nib. So if I wanted to get a little bit fancier with my writing, I can go a little bit smaller. I have a pretty relaxed writing style, but if I wanted to get a little bit tighter, it certainly works fine for that too. If you are someone who has really small handwriting and you like to write 2 lines at once, I usually leave a line in between my writing. It just gives me more space to breathe. But if you like to write a bit smaller and your handwriting is smaller, I would suggest a fine nib or even the extra fine. But it does tighten up fine. It's not too thick for that. However, where I think this nib really shines is when I just print. So really juicy. I just love it. And it shows the shading of the ink. All right, so when you get into like an extra fine or a fine nib, you don't often see the shading of the ink. And what I mean by that is when it dries, it has a little bit of variation in the color. So you get some dark spots and some light spots, right? And this is not a particularly heavily shading ink to begin with, but it does have a little bit, and the medium nib really brings that out. To compare it, I have a double broad nib in the Clementine, which I really love. This has Diamine orange ink in it right now, and you can see the difference if this is a lighter ink, so it's going to appear a little bit different, but this is quite a bit more broad. It's even juicier. See, so even thicker than this one. There's not an immense variation between the nib sizes. If you go from an extra fine to a double broad, you're going to see a big difference, but the differences are gradual. So again, if you're someone who likes to write a little bit finer and smaller, I would go with an extra fine or a fine. If you're someone who likes to spread out a little bit more when you write, I think a medium is absolutely perfect. Double broad I use for when I do text that's going to be reproduced and I want a really thick, like bold text. I'll use the double broad nib, and it's super for that. So that is basically how I feel about this pen. The color is really gorgeous. It is plastic, but it has a beautiful feel to it. It feels like fine, you know, it's a lovely, lovely material that it's made out of. It has a translucence to it. Again, I'm using a cartridge. You can use a converter in these pens. Let me just show you what those look like. I have one. I think I have one in here. Maybe it's in this drawer. I thought I did. Yes, okay. So this is, no? Here it is. Oh, I'm sorry, I guess I don't. Well, the Kaweco converter, I bought one to use in my pens so I could use bottled ink. And it was impossible to insert. It's only like this big. It's a plunger. It holds very, very little ink. So I have just resigned to the fact that with my Kawecos, I use cartridges, and I'm perfectly happy with that. So many brands make wonderful cartridges these days that it's not an issue at all. So you may have noticed that the title of this series on my YouTube channel is called Right Left. I'm left-handed, obviously, and sometimes fountain pens just don't work very well for left-handed people. Another thing that doesn't work well are inks that take a super, super long time to dry on certain papers. So you won't see me very often using Tomoe River paper or papers that are coated like that take a long time for the ink to dry. While they are really beautiful to work with and the inks are just outstanding on those papers, for a left-handed person, it's kind of tricky unless you use a really fine nib. So that's one of the things that I'm always looking at is how a nib writes for my left-handedness. And Kawecos are always great for me. There are certain pens, and I'll go over some of those as time goes on when I do different reviews, that I start using and they just catch and they drag and they feel scratchy and the nibs just stop and start for me. And it's because of the angle that I write with, right? Left-handed people tend to have all different ways of writing too. Some write like this, you know, hook-handed. Some are sideways. Some are a little bit like this, like me. And some actually do it this way. No matter how you write, your angle is going to be different than a right-handed person. And fountain pens in general, 99% of them are made for right-handed people. So I am going to talk about that in every video, how it works for me as a left-handed user. And if you're right-handed, I'm also going to talk about a lot of other things about it too. So it's not a very complicated pen. Again, just a few parts. You've got the cap, and then you unscrew the body, and you stick your cartridge in. You can actually change the nibs on these pens. I think I have an extra nib for a Kaweco that I can show you. It is super easy to change the nib. So if you bought a medium and eventually you wanted to try an extra fine, when there's no cartridge in the pen, you simply take something or just hold the nib between your fingers, you pull it straight out, and then you replace it with the new nib. And it just looks like this. Super, super easy to do. This is an extra fine. So you can see it's just inserted into the barrel of the pen. All right. If you have a metal pen, for instance, the Kaweco brass, it's going to be a little bit different. You're actually going to unscrew the nib and screw the new one in, but I can show you that another time if I ever decide to change it. By the way, this is my favorite. So super easy to change your nib size. The nibs are not very expensive. However, if you are someone who wants to get into a gold nib, these are actually stainless steel nibs. So they're a little bit stiffer than a gold nib. If you're someone who wants to get into a gold nib and doesn't mind spending that kind of money, I know they're well over $100. These are only like 10 or 11. You know, you can do that too. But for me, this is an inexpensive everyday fountain pen that I can take with me when I'm out in the car, out running around, traveling, and I don't have to worry so much about losing it. I'm not going to take, you know, my $150 Pelican, you know, out in my purse every day. It's just not going to happen. So this is a pen that works really, really well at a really affordable price. Isn't the color just beautiful? I absolutely love it. I just love it. So what I thought I would do is just write the first stanza of one of my favorite poems. It's called Stone by Charles Simic. So there you have it, a really beautiful, nice, juicy, medium nibbed pen. If you're someone that has more expressive handwriting, I'm not a calligrapher. I don't try to have perfect handwriting. I just like to write. I like to write on paper. It is my favorite thing. I write everything on paper. So I had to do reviews for some artwork that I was reviewing, and I wrote everything down. I write everything down. So you're also going to get some reviews about paper and different notebooks and things like that, and just general talk about writing, about a more analog way of recording our thoughts and our days. I should mention too that this is the Moleskine, this is the extra thick one. I can't remember what it's called, but it's the large format, soft cover. It's the Moleskine Extra, and it has lots of pages, which I like because it takes me, I write a lot, and so if I get the thin ones, they're done so quickly. I have to buy a new one, and just for a couple dollars more, you can get twice the amount of pages, which I really, really like. And it has actually 2 ribbons in it, which is nice. I've never used both, but in case I ever needed to. All right, everyone. So that is the Kaweco collection, Kaweco Sport Iridescent model, new this March. By the way, I purchased mine at Pen Chalet. penchalet.com. There are many, many places that are selling this pen right now. If you just put it into your search engine, the Kaweco Collection Iridescent model, you will find it. I think I paid $22.50. All right, everyone, that's it for today. I hope this was enjoyable. If you are someone who loves fountain pens, who loves ink, who loves paper, who loves notebooks and writing letters and stationery and all of those things, you're in for a treat, because I have been a lifelong aficionado and I have a lot to share. So hopefully I'll see you here again. Click subscribe. If you want updates, you can get those too. I really appreciate you being here. Thanks so much, and I'll see you soon.